Storm Reid, how about you ask, let's say, the Rings of Power cast and crew how well it worked out for them when they targeted and smeared critics of their series? Hello, this is Mara Jade, and I'm back with another video, and in the day and age of social media, if this were at all as prevalent as those associated with the HBO Max series like to make it out to be, this, quote, homophobic backlash, you would think that we would not be able to log on to Twitter on a daily basis without getting bombarded with tweet after tweet after tweet stemming from, quote-unquote, homophobia or something akin to that. Now, I looked through tweets regarding the Last of Us series to see if I could find any that was homophobic in nature, and you'd have to be hard-pressed, and I mean hard-fucking-pressed, to find any. Now, I'm not saying there might not be some mixed in there, but they are the minute fraction amongst the majority of those criticizing the series. Vast majority of criticisms I've seen directed towards this HBO Max series has been about the changing of the story, or the butchering of the story, depending on whom you ask, altering characters, personalities, motivations, and so forth, changing the timeline, changing how the disease itself is spread, which makes absolutely no fucking sense, and so forth. Nothing at all to do with gay characters or anything of that nature, because most of the people watching this series played the game, played the first game, so they know the characters, they know which characters are straight, which characters are gay, and they've had no fucking problem with it whatsoever. So why would there be any amount of backlash directed towards the series, and particularly homophobic backlash? It makes absolutely no fucking sense. But these people, and when I say these people, I mean those associated with the Last of Us series, much like with the Rings of Power series, the Halo series, and so forth, they label all criticism as either racist, sexist, or in this case, homophobic, because it goes against their narrative. If they had all admitted that these criticisms are genuine, it goes against their narrative. But in any case, let's just dive right into this article so we can gauge of what is being said. Then I'm going to give my 2 cents on this whole situation after I go through most of the article. I'm not going to go through the entirety of the article, but I'm going to touch on this right here in the title. So here it is. The Last of Us actress Storm Reid recently responded to, quote, homophobic backlash over the show's blatant portrayal of disordered lifestyles and acts of grave depravity. I have no idea what that's supposed to mean, but okay. Speaking with Variety, Reid was asked by Cassie Stefan, Bella, you've previously spoken about the homophobic backlash to the show and why you're not letting it scare you. I'm assuming they're alluding to episode 3, but I'm going to give my thoughts on that a bit later. Storm, what's your take on this topic, especially knowing that there will likely be a response to this particular episode? So they're already setting the wheels in motion right now for any criticism for this previous episode. Now, I've not watched this episode, but I know it's stemming from the Last of Us DLC Left Behind. So I know the story in that. I know what's revealed in that DLC. I know the Riley character and that character's connection with Ellie and so forth. So again, those watching the series, the majority of them are fans of the Last of Us game, or at least play the Last of Us game, so they all know all that shit. So they're basically dusting out the playbook, getting it ready, so anyone who criticizes this previous episode is going to be labeled as homophobic. Reid responded, I think Bella put it perfectly a couple weeks ago. If you don't like it, don't watch. There's so many other things to worry about in the world. I will agree with that to an extent, because they love telling us that if we criticize anything that they find precious to them, but they won't take their own fucking advice. We tell them, if you don't like it, don't watch it, because they always want to come in. When I say they, I'm talking about SJWs, identity politics, virtue signaling, and so forth, wanting to come into fandoms and alter it to suit their own warped ideals, claiming to be fans the entire time, but in reality, only fans when it's suited and soothed and massaged their little fucking egos, pretty much. We tell them, if you don't like it, don't play it. If you don't like it, don't watch it. If you don't like it, don't read it. But they don't take their own fucking advice. They love to tell us that, but if we tell them that, oh God fucking forbid. Pretty much. I think being concerned about who people love is just absurd to me. I just don't. I will never understand it. I don't get it, she added. Again, no one fucking cares. People know these characters. Reid continued, I think despite what people are going to say, if they don't like it, I think there are going to be a lot more people that appreciate it. A lot more people that feel represented and seen and heard. So that's what matters. Yeah, because it's all about the superficial qualities. God forbid anyone who falls into those qualities that they like to talk about, whether it's skin color, sex, or sexuality, God forbid they have any deeper personalities, aspirations, motivations, and so forth. Because they always want to treat people as a monolith. They accuse us of racism and so forth, but they love treating people as a monolith. So if you're gay, then you should think this way. If you're a woman, you should think this way. If you're black, you should think this way. In their minds. But we're the racist ones. We're the racist ones, or the sexist ones, or the homophobic ones. If we criticize anything they find precious to their little egos, anything that basically assuages their little identity politics and virtue signaling, pandering, and so forth. That's where the work comes in, Reid stated, and that's when it's appreciated, and you prioritize looking at those tweets rather than the ones that aren't the best. Again, I looked through the tweets. I just did a cursory scroll down to see if I could anything that stood out as anything homophobic regarding this previous episode, and most of what I saw, if it was critical, it was talking about, again, the butchering of the story and so forth, but most of what I saw was OMG, oh my god, I feel so represented. That's what I fucking found. Where's this backlash? Where the fuck is this backlash that they're talking about? I know that's a rhetorical question, but still. Ramsey previously told GQ UK, I know people will think what they want to think, but they're gonna have to get used to it. If you don't want to watch the show because it has gay storylines, because it has a trans character, that character shows up in the second Last of Us game. So guess fucking what, people? You can like the show all you fucking want, but I'm getting ready for the fucking whinging to start, because this storyline is going to go into the storyline in Last of Us Part 2. So we're going to see that trans character, and we're going to see Abby and her golf club. So those liking this season, I'm ready. I'm just waiting for the whinging videos and so forth about the continuation of the story. That's on you, and you're missing out. It isn't going to make me afraid. I think that comes from a place of defiance, she added. Okay, stunning and brave. Moving on. As far as Reid's claim that more people will be represented and heard, it's unclear where she's getting her information to back up such a claim. A March 2022 Gallup poll found that only 7.2% of U.S. adults identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or something other than straight or heterosexual. So basically, lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender are the core of that community. That's the LGBT. But then you have the other fucking made-up sexualities in that community, so I guess that's another couple percent or something like that. But in any case, only 7.2% of the U.S. population. That's not a lot. Interestingly, Gallup also notes the percentage has doubled since Gallup first measured LGBT identification in 2012. Like I said, I think if you remove the bullshit sexualities from that, then the percentage would be a little bit lower. But they're including the identify as demisexual or whatever, pretty much. They're including shit like that. But that's where I'm not going to cover everything in this article. I'm going to post a link so you can read it for yourselves and make up your own minds. But in any case, this whole thing is primarily stemming from the criticism for episode 3. And for those who have not watched the series or maybe need to be caught up a little bit, episode 3 focused on the Bill and Frank characters. And criticism I saw surrounding that episode, myself included, we found it to be filler. Pure fucking filler. The story went absolutely nowhere. Pretty fucking much. The only thing that at all progressed the story forward in episode 3 was the fact that Joel got Bill's truck. That's fucking it. They changed Bill and Frank's characters blatantly. I'm not going to say how what they ultimately ended up doing, but it altered the storyline itself, because those who played the game know that Joel interacts with Bill and so forth, so, draw your own conclusions to that and what they did to Bill and Frank's character. They, again, changed them completely, and people were criticizing that. They were also criticizing the fact that, again, the story served no fucking purpose other than to get you to care for two characters that you don't fucking see beyond episode 3. It blatantly and emotionally manipulated people, pulled on the heartstrings to get you to care about characters that you couldn't can't anymore because they're no longer around. And I called them out on that. You have the director of that episode saying that he tricked audiences into watching a homosexual love story. Why would you have to trick audiences into watching that? Again, people have played the game. They know the characters. They know what to essentially expect. You didn't have to trick anyone into watching that episode, but he did. He fucking did. And then you had articles in The Gamer, Kotaku, and so forth, again, labeling anyone who criticized that episode as homophobic because, you don't understand what filler means, therefore you must be homophobic if you're criticizing this episode. Same with this next previous episode, episode 7. Again, I haven't watched it, but I know what to expect because I've played the DLC. I know what happens in Left Behind. I know Riley's character and so forth. Again, showing a character, not criticizing at all the portrayal of the character or anything like that because I have not watched the episode, but showing a character that, again, you don't see past one episode. Could have just shown her connection with Ellie entirely in flashbacks interspersed throughout the entire series. Because they drop Riley's name and so forth, and they allude to the events in Left Behind in the first 2 episodes of the series, but then it takes up until, episode 7? To finally show who Riley is? Really? You couldn't show flashbacks at all interspersed throughout the series, so that way, by the time we get to episode 7 and what ultimately happens, maybe you would have a connection to the characters? Maybe? Just fucking maybe? But at any rate, there it is, folks. There it is, folks. They're dusting off the playbooks again, claiming there's homophobic backlash, and I'm hard-pressed, and I figure you'd be hard-pressed to actually find any legitimate backlash stemming from any type of homophobia. But at any rate, what are your thoughts on this article? Let me know down in the comments below. Do you agree with what Storm Reid and Bella Ramsey said? Do you disagree with what they said? Have you been watching the series? What are your thoughts on the series? I tapped out at episode 5, essentially. I might go back and watch episode 6 and 7, but we'll see. I felt that the show itself was lackluster. It's not horrible by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not as good, in my opinion, as others feel about the series. But again, that's just my opinion. Let me know those thoughts down in the comments below. I'll see you guys live later tonight on Twitch. My Twitch is Jade_Fire. I'll be playing Warzone, so come check that out. About 7 p.m. Eastern, thereabouts, so tune in for that. If you like this video, leave a thumbs up. Share on social media if you will. This is Mara Jade. Catch you on the dark side. And again, ask the Rings of Power cast and crew how well this shit worked out for them. Fucking hell.